Focus on my hand. And focus on me. Focus on my hand. And focus on me. Oh my god, it actually works! So I bought the Viltrox Canon EF to Sony FE adapter version 5. It's also known as the Viltrox EF to E5 adapter for short. And what's special about this adapter is that it has an OLED display on it. But what's even more special about this adapter is that it allows you to use Canon EF lenses on Sony cameras with continuous autofocus while recording video. And as you have seen in the intro, it really works. But that's just with one lens. So in this video, I'm going to be stress testing this adapter on several other Canon EF lenses. And without wasting any more time, let's get to it. The lenses I'm going to be using are the Canon 16-35mm f2.8 version 1, 24-70mm f2.8 version 2, 70-200mm f2.8 version 2 IS, and to make things interesting, I'll also be testing the legendary 50mm f1. All tests will be conducted on my Sony a7R II with focus area set to flexible L in the center of the frame and the aperture set wide open with the shutter speed at 1/50th of a second. First up is the 16-35mm at 16mm. And it seems to be working well. Next, we have the same lens, but at 35mm. Here, we see the focus struggling a bit. It seems to hesitate at times, and sometimes it even fails to nail focus. Moving on to the 24-70mm at 24mm. Here, we see some hesitation again. But overall, it still performs well. Now we are on the 24-70mm at 35mm. Here it starts off well, but then we get some hesitation again. And near the end of the test, it struggled a bit, but eventually it nailed focus. Next, we are on the 24-70 at 70mm. It looked promising at first, but very quickly it begins to fall apart. A very poor performance at 70mm. Moving on to the 70-200 at 70mm, and I'm not optimistic about the performance at all. Here we see the focus hesitates and give up. It did manage to nail focus at one point, but then it decided to give up again. Now we are at 135mm on the 70-200. At this point, it couldn't even hold focus when focusing on the background. So naturally, it wasn't going to perform well. Once again, another very poor performance. Now we are at 200mm on the 70-200. Yeah, at this point I'm not expecting anything at all. But then it surprised me by nailing focus. And then it gave up again. A very unstable and poor performance. Finally, we have the 50mm f1. I'll be honest, I didn't think it would work at all, seeing as how the 50mm f1 wasn't an easy lens to nail focus. But it did. And not only that, it actually did a pretty good job. Which got me wondering, could the poor performance on the previous lenses be a result of poor lighting conditions? But I guess we will never know, as I'm running out of time to do any more tests. So in conclusion, the Viltrox EF-E5 adapter works, but it's not perfect. As we have seen from my testing, it struggles to keep focus from 50mm onwards. Now, this could be due to poor lighting conditions of the test area. Or it could also be the fact that I'm using an A7R II, which was one of the earliest Sony cameras that supported continuous autofocus in video. As I recall, the autofocusing back then, even on native lenses, wasn't perfect either. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to do another test in good lighting, and neither do I own any of the latest Sony cameras like the A7S III and the A1. So whether or not the mediocre performance of this test lies entirely on the adapter itself, I can't say for certain. Cost-wise, I paid $160 for this Viltrox EF-E5 adapter. And I know some of you might be thinking that that's a lot of money for something that doesn't exactly work all the time. And you're right. But for me, to be able to use all my Canon EF lenses on my Sony cameras with continuous autofocus in video, I'll say that's a bargain. And with that said, we've come to the end of this video. I hope you learned something today, and until next time, see ya! Oh, and one last thing. In the last video, I hinted that I'll be doing a review on some eye drops. But unfortunately, the last episode was 2 years ago. And at this point, I no longer have those eye drops. Which is a shame really, because that would have been a fun video. Oh well.